Welcome back to the Tectonic Takes podcast. This is officially our first episode after the conclusion of the 2025 Major League Soccer season. A few reasons for that. We tried to get an episode out to you more recently, but some technical difficulties on the night of our recording, and we've managed to regroup. And we're going to talk a little bit about the town this episode. We'll talk a little bit about what we're anticipating with the San Jose Earthquakes. We'll probably dive deeper into that at a later date. And then we'll give a brief MLS playoffs update. And then we'll see what the next episode holds. Because, when it's the Quakes off season, even though MLS playoffs are still ongoing, we're kind of just going with the flow. We do want to get you some content out there so that way it's not just we're gone for a few months. But Devon, how are you doing?
Doing good. I'm missing our team's soccer season already. Only just under a month away of our final game. I've missed the team. I want to see soccer again, but I want to see San Jose Earthquake soccer again. I know MLS playoffs are active and engaged right now. Which is really fun to watch. Admittedly, I've been thoroughly enjoying Philadelphia's run to the Cup final. Was thoroughly enjoying Nashville SC's, kind of clash with Inter Miami, and also admittedly LAFC's on a pretty good run, and they're quite an entertaining team to watch, despite being a San Jose Earthquakes fan and having the pressure of not saying that. But as a Sun fan, I know I have to admit, and a former San Jose Earthquakes player, Jeremy Bogusi, getting a goal. It's been really fun to watch all those games and all these teams playing MLS Cup. But more than anything, I wish the San Jose Earthquakes were back.
Yeah, it's an interesting vibe seeing teams whose fans were eliminated and how they pay attention to the playoffs. And I think that's the unfortunate part, one of the unfortunate parts of this playoff structure, particularly with this first full round stretching to potential 3 games for at least 4 teams, is that if you're not a fan of one of those teams that's going the distance, your patience is going to wear thin, because we're going to have to cram 3 games before the international break in November starts, which of course is going to delay the next round of the playoffs another week. So it's just a bit of greed from the Apple side of things, that ever since the Apple TV has been the sole provider of Major League Soccer games, that they've wanted this round 1 expansion, and they're getting enough numbers of it for them to justify running this back for a 3rd straight season now. But hopefully with more and more people raising their voice, they'll find a way to tweak it somehow. I think the biggest change, if you are going to have at least 2 games in this first round, you got to restore aggregate again, because look at Columbus Crew. They lost the first game 1-0. They beat Cincinnati 4-1, or 4-0 even. Yeah, it was 4-0 because Yuya Kubo had an early red card, so Cincinnati couldn't generate too much. And that they could still potentially lose the playoff round either on penalties or by a narrow scoreline. So not really a fan of that, but you do hope that overall that it's going to be a good playoffs. There is a lot on the line with players like Darlington Nagbe, Sergio Busquets, Jordi Alba announcing their retirement whenever their teams do end their playoff tenure, but I've enjoyed it despite the problems.
I'm curious, what are your thoughts on San Diego FC's season or postseason so far? I know we've got Amal Pellegrino making some key moves out there on the field and helping San Diego progress through into the the 3rd game. Not necessarily the next round yet, as they play Portland, I think midweek this week or sometime on Saturday or something. But it's the 3rd game, and Amal Pellegrino's been contributing. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that Amal Pellegrino has picked the right time to heat up and step up. When the Earthquakes played against him in the second of 2 times in the regular season, you didn't really feel Pellegrino as a threat that you had a game plan for. But now he's finding his rhythm, and sometimes just as simple as a change of scenery can really help things out. You can use a variety of examples in a variety of sports. If you want to keep it Bay Area, Jake Moody was missing a ton of field goals, and then he goes to Chicago Bears, and then he starts making them, including a game winner. But it's good to see San Diego play this well. We'll see if they're able to see off a tricky Portland Timbers side in Game 3. A big trend that I've noticed as well, it's not really a surprise because Major League Soccer has such a home field advantage, but that only one team won as the away team in Game 1. So that was New York City winning 1-0 against Charlotte. But then Charlotte themselves prevailed on penalties when the game was played in New York. So that canceled it out there too. And when you look at that in contrast to the playoff formats where it's one and done, the USL Championship playoffs started this past weekend, and NorCal's been officially eliminated with Sacramento Republic losing on penalties to Orange County. And with the Town, which we'll get into shortly, that there is a lot more jeopardy in those games, and that's just like the purist in Major League Soccer fans. You want the games to be meaningful. You want it to be like, okay, one round done, then another, and then you go from there. But you do get a chance to see some of the better teams prevail, and you do get to see most teams have success at home, unless with the talent disparity being too much to overcome, in the case for LAFC over Austin and Philadelphia Union over Chicago Fire.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment too. And going back to the Pellegrino thing, I think you're right. Like, a change of scenery definitely benefited him significantly. Having a star striking system around him has significantly helped and boosted his confidence. And being a part of a team that's also in the top three, and playing with consistently good numbers and players, I think is incredibly boosted his confidence as well. And kind of like you mentioned, even with like Town competitiveness and MLS Next Pro teams still in the playoff hunt, despite the Town being eliminated in the recent weekend or the week prior. I still think it is entertaining to watch those players because you never know who they're going to play for next. And knowing our current managers within MLS, like, they're going to keep an eye on these teams. And I know for sure, like, Bruce is a very domestic player recruitment type manager. And I can definitely see him watching all these games in preparation for next season. So you really never know who's even going to be on the Quakes. So even as a Quakes fan, just watching MLS Cup playoffs and watching MLS Next Pro playoffs could paint a good eye in terms of what our recruitment may be for next season, and what some players approaching their contract, their end of their contracts, may provide for us heading into 2026. So as a Quakes fan, definitely keep an eye on MLS Cup playoffs, because I think that may be a factor. These players are showcasing who they want to play for next season.
Yeah. And after a decades-long wait, we had our first playoff game in PayPal Park when the Town hosted North Texas. We did it!
Let's go! We made it!
Yeah, let's take a look at this lineup that started against North Texas in the first round of the playoffs. And it is a beautiful thing that as the higher seed, you get to call out your opponent as well. And we had the luxury of doing that in the first round, and it worked out. As only the second highest seed in the conference semifinals, we didn't have that option. But we had Francesco Montali in goal, at 25 years old. He was also the captain for that game. You have to feel like there's a possibility that he could be the backup goalkeeper. Maybe next season, we'll see. I know Earl Edwards Jr. had a good last game there, but if they decide not to bring Earl Edwards Jr.'s back, then I think Montali would be a solid option there. But it's also tough when you're playing really well in the Town and MLS Next Pro, but you're not going to have a straightforward path to be the starter in Major League Soccer. You get stuck in purgatory of, okay, you have to decide between, are you going to play in MLS Next Pro, or are you going to be content being a backup and biding your time? But Montali, he kept a clean sheet in this one, And even though he had a tougher game where they conceded four against Colorado, leading to their elimination, he wasn't really at fault for those goals either. So, solid season for him.
Yeah, I agree. And going back to Mentali possibly playing for the Earthquakes next season, I genuinely don't see just Earl Edwards Jr. potentially not playing for us as well. So that leaves, and I say that because I think Daniel is also on the way out, and I know we can speculate more of that in the future podcasts to come when we kind of cover more of the overall end of season or end of year assessment. But there is definite strong rumblings of Daniel not returning, and what that could mean for Montali is that could be a direct backup to whoever Bruce Arena wants to recruit as a starter for the team. And if that's worth it for Montali, then I can definitely see him making that contract because for the games that I watched for the Town FC, he definitely impressed me well enough. He's made some good shots, parried some shots away from the center of the I want to say crease because NHL is back in season, but it's not a crease; it's the box. But yeah, so I can see Montali being the second goalkeeper for next season if when Daniel doesn't return, and same as potentially Earl Edwards Jr.
I agree. So Montali, he will definitely be a factor into the planning for the goalkeeper room in 2026. As for the back line, we saw five different back line players start either one of the playoff games. The three that were consistent in both those matches. In right back, we had Wilson Eisner at 23 years old. In center back, we had the pairing of Alejandro Cano of El Salvador, 21 years old, and the last original Quakes 2 player from the 2022 season, when MLS Next Pro first launched. And then Max Floriani was his partner, and he scored a goal in that game against North Texas. Now, interestingly, in North Texas, Ariel Mbumba of DR Congo, he is 24 years old. He played very well. He started at left back, but we inserted Jamar Ricketts for the game against Colorado Rapids too. And no disrespect to Mbumba, but if you have the option to play Ricketts, I completely understand. You got to stand by that decision. If Ricketts is willing to play, I understand that. However, I would still feel hard done by if I was Mbumba because he played very well in that North Texas game. And now, with the benefit of hindsight, Ricketts unfortunately getting set off, you wonder if that was the wrong decision. But of course, one red card in MLS Next Pro is not going to undo all the progress that Ricketts has made where it really counts in integrating himself to the San Jose Earthquakes first team. But for him and for Floriani, it was a lot of learning on the fly, learning under duress in a defensive system that was conceding a lot of pressure, conceded a ton of goals, which we've talked about ad nauseum. But I think this was a nice positive ending to Floriani's rookie season, getting a goal and a clean sheet in the penultimate playoff game. Thoughts on the Town defenders?
I think they defended well. I mean, knowing throughout the entire season, kind of leading up to the playoffs, we've had a lot of close calls, and close calls is, I mean, like, there were some good opportunities for clean sheets, and the clean sheets that we had were awesome, and just the defensive players made a solid effort and were consistent throughout all season. Even postseason, I didn't really get to watch much. I only watched like the YouTube highlights, admittedly. But the highlights that I saw, our defense was pretty well structured. Admittedly, I'm kind of on that mindset that sure Ricketts should have been benched for just I think aggression purposes. I think his aggression is too much for MLS Next Pro, and that's not necessarily like a bad thing. I think it's just more of a matter of fact of like his strength is almost like his weakness, where it just gets him in trouble, unfortunately. And I think if it was just the other way around, we could have, I think, had a better opportunity of making it to the next round. But that said, our back line was structured really well, really tight all season, all postseason. Really proud for what they've done, and I hope that our first team coaches and staff gives them a good pat on the back, contract or not.
Yeah, it was bittersweet, and it's important to note as well that in the Colorado loss, the town only conceded one goal when it was 11-11. So, yeah, unfortunate situation with the red card. It was 1-1 at the time. And then they still fought back at 2-1 down a player. That's usually a death knell when you're up against a strong opponent in a playoff or knockout game situation. But the town were able to force extra time. So it's interesting because right now it seems like the town have this wall where they keep getting out in the same round the last 3 seasons, getting to the conference semifinal. But you put in perspective of this is a developmental league that you're not really trying to chase a championship. That's not the point. You don't get any extra bonus points or advantages for winning an MLS Next Pro title going into the Major League Soccer season the following year. So you have a bit more of like an understanding there. It would be nice if they do manage to win one, but of course you're just trying to develop these players and get to the next stage of their career. And one player in the midfield that I think has the best chance perhaps to make that leap in terms of his involvement within the first team is got to be Nick Fernandez. He was incredible in both games. He had an assist in the game against Colorado Rapids too. And I think had it not been for injuries, we might have seen him a little bit more this past season. And he's playing very well that I think he'll be on the first team roster and potentially in the squad for the opening day of 2026.
Yeah, I could see Nick Fernandez being a top contender for, for minutes at least in the San Jose Earthquakes 2026 season. Knowing Bruce Arena, he's a midfield heavy kind of guy. He likes to have his DPs in the midfield, at least when it comes to Carlos Gil and other players that were recruited when he was on the Galaxy and other clubs before that. He likes to have his top players in the midfield. So I think Nick Fernandez really has to show out in preseason to really attract those minutes because he's also competing for Bo LaRue's minutes, Ian Harkes, now Vieira, who we brought in mid-season, and other guys, even like Jack Skane. I know he really likes Jack Skane in training sessions and whatnot. So there's a lot of competition there in the midfield, and the off season's just starting, so we don't even know who we're connected with in the transfer window coming up December, January. However, that said, I think he has a really good shot. And if anything, he will definitely be a starter and a star for Town FC. And like you said, his performances, he's got goals and assists, even recently. I like his close dribbling. I like the fact that he can distribute well to the wingers and he knows when to distribute. He knows when the players he's distributing to are wide open and how to create space for others, not just himself. Like, he's a very promising player, and I really like the structure in which he plays football in. So yeah, definitely agree. Like he's a very strong contender for 2026 on the first team roster.
Yeah, with the Town to Quakes pipeline, while it's great that Bo LaRue made the immediate transition to becoming a starting 11 player, then that was a very big boost for the San Jose Earthquakes to start the season. That's the exception to the rule. I think there's usually going to be a few intermediate steps before that happens for most players. And for Fernandez, he was recovering from some injuries that Bruce Arena is very much patient and respectful of that process. I think he sees Fernandez as a player that will be important to the Quakes' future, and rightfully so. And we've talked a lot about Cruz Medina as another player, a part of that future. He is still only 19 years old. Can you believe that?
No, I can't believe it. I feel like we've had him for about 10 years. That's how long it's been. I think we signed him at what, 14, 15 years old, and he's now 19 playing for the Town. I don't know. Maybe next season he'll finally get some minutes in the regular season for the Quakes. What are your thoughts on his performance in playoffs, postseason, and regular season for Cruz Medina?
Some might say that the hype train has been derailed for Cruz Medina. I think that he just got transferred into a more appropriate speed train, if that makes sense. That we're now coming to terms with he is 19 years old. That some teenagers are going to take a little bit more time to get to that level. And while it is a reason for consternation sometimes because we see all sorts of European leagues where there's teenagers playing at the first team level. Even still, that there's a lot of caution with those players too, and that they may be just reduced to cup minutes or going out on loan. So every player is different. Medina hasn't done anything to warrant thinking that now he has no future in Major League Soccer. It's just going to be a little bit more time, and it might not even be next season. He might still benefit from another season in town. There's a lot of players just on our 11 alone on the town that are 22, 23, 24, and they could still perhaps get a chance because with the college system, most players entering the MLS entry draft from college is 21 or 22 anyway. So he's still got time on his side.
Speaking of college, I know Stanford's got a game coming up in the ACC college tournament. I know Alex Chow's been a hot number on Stanford's roster. Depending on when this podcast goes up, I think it's worth Earthquakes fan heading out to Stanford Stadium, or not Stanford Stadium, the field next to Stanford Stadium at Stanford, to check out our boys wearing black and red at Stanford during their playoff push. Give our boys the support from the academy because I could genuinely feel Alex Chow being one of those guys that we want to hold on to for the draft if or when he decides to enter. He's a big name. He's got a couple of goals, a couple of assists, I think, this season. I will have to recheck the stats. But, yeah, big names in the Earthquakes pipeline. And, kind of basing that off what you just said, like, they could really use some good minutes in the U.S. Open Cup. I think a really good example of that, Jack Skane, didn't really get many minutes in regular season performance. But the performances he put in U.S. Open Cup. He got that goal versus Portland Timbers and made as good of an effort as he could in the final. Was it decision day? I think he got an assist. It was either decision day or the penultimate game of the season. He put in some hard work there, and I think the minutes that he was given paid off. So those players from Town FC, those draft players, they come to play in those tournament moments. So I can really see players like Nick Fernandez, potentially Alex Chow. I'm only saying potentially because I really like the guy and I really want him to play for us. But Jack Skane, all those guys, they're running hot for minutes. And Open Cup tournaments and knockout round tournaments is perfect for them.
Yeah, I think you integrate them slowly and limited fashion into some of those U.S. Open Cup games, potentially against a USL or below team, and then we'll see as now we can dream about going further in the U.S. Open Cup because we had a deep run this time, at least for Quake standards. But yeah, there's always going to be that crowd of, we want the strongest team in the U.S. Open Cup. And just logistically, there's always going to be some consideration of minutes and scheduling there. Some other names that started the playoff games, we had Edwin Mendoza at 19 years old. He also provided an assist. This was against North Texas. 22 years old Riley Lynch. They had 22-year-old Misael Rodriguez. And then the goal machine at the next pro level, Nanso Ademabua, 25 years old, out of Nigeria. He had a very productive season for the town, just clinical, confident in front of goal, and with 19 goals in the 2025 season, this is courtesy of Abram, a lot of these facts are, he is 19 goal contributions, so 13 goals, 6 assists. He was tied for 6th top scorer in the league, and this was the record for most goal contributions in a season by Quakes 2 or Town player. And then the previous record holders, 15 was Eduardo Blancas in 2023 and Max Arfson in 2022. I will do a little bit of where are they now, but you don't need that information for Max Arfson. Everyone's aware. 14 was Rudy Castro in 2022, and then for 10, rounding out the double digits goal contributors, Riley Lynch and Eduardo Blancas again. So I did a little bit of digging for some of those uh, maybe forgotten names at this point. But Rudy Castro plays for Almaden FC, and that is a team in the
South Bay, right?
South Bay.
Yeah,
And they
Almaden FC. That was one of my competitive teams or opponents back when I played for the Dianza Force, so I know them quite well.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So USL League Two there, and then Eduardo Blancas in USL League One for AV Alta. So even if they don't end up being Quakes players, they're still playing professional soccer in the USL system. They'll be competing in the US Open Cup, and it's still pretty cool to see that they're doing well in their respective levels. And that's probably going to be the long term outlook. That not everyone can become a San Jose Earthquake superstar that comes from the town, but you're still going to be happy to follow them wherever they go. But let's circle back to Adimabua. Uh, when you've seen his highlights or see him play, what impresses you most about him?
I mean, I can the most obvious thing to say is the finishing, the clinicality of him, and um, you know, I can't personally speak on what I've noticed because I haven't really, admittedly, watched too many Quakes two, sorry, Town FC games. Um, so I think maybe you and Abram would provide better context for next episode. But you know, seeing those numbers and seeing the fact that he's above Max Arfson, above Eduardo Blancas, when these players are highly registered among the Quakes fan base and those who analyze them on a day-to-day basis, like that's impressive. That's really impressive, and it's worth noting that even though he's on the Town FC, he should be maybe one step higher with these numbers because he can clearly place himself in a good position. And he has the tenacity in front of goal and the confidence and composure to finish off these shots and to get 19 in one season. That's really impressive, if you ask me. So, I mean, what are your thoughts, Ivan?
I think he's just ruthless. He's got that mindset, along with his physical attributes, that makes him a complete player for this level. And then you just wonder how's it going to look like when he takes that step up because you're going to face higher quality defenses and you're not going to have it quite as easy. But if you make the adjustments to the adjustments, that's how you can find success there. And to put in perspective, within the 28 game season in MLS Next Pro, so you're scoring or assisting in 2/3 of the game. Of course, for a striker, you're more focused on if you're a goal every other game player at a minimum, and he still qualifies for that 13 out of 28, practically a goal every other game. But if you can provide a goal contribution for more than every other game, you're definitely going to be productive and you're definitely going to get rewarded with more opportunities going forward. Rounding out the notable players for the town this year, so we saw a little bit of Ricardo Ibarra. He's 24 years old. He can play as winger. He can play as a fullback. We also have got the Canadian Keegan Walwyn Bent at 22 years old. We've got Julian Donnery, the 20-year-old left winger out of Scotland. And then the last three are probably the most intriguing. We got some teenagers here, of course. Kadron Spivey, 16 years old. Bruce Arena even mentioned him by name one time, so he's definitely on his radar. The 18-year-old Rohan Rajagopal, so that's pretty cool that he's been getting more and more involved and he's got plenty of years in him. And of course, we're starting to wonder about where will Chance Cowell fit in for the long-term plans. 17 years old still, a bit of a big age gap between him and Cade Cowell, but I'm 6 years older and 10 years older respectively of my two brothers, so it's not out of the realms of possibility there. But I think Spivey and Cowell are probably the ones that we know the best right now. Any thoughts on either of them?
I think you made a good point of that. Bruce Arena had mentioned him in the press conference because other performers, like even our top goal scorer, he didn't mention them. He only mentioned Spivey. He only mentioned Kadron Spivey. So I don't know. That's something interesting to note. obviously it's difficult to speculate those things, but you knowing Bruce Arena and knowing how he handles media, he doesn't really say too much anyway. And the fact that he mentioned Kadrian Spivey is I think is something of value and significance looking forward into the future. Um, Chance Cowell is another player of note. I don't know if he's necessarily going to see the San Jose Earthquakes field next season. He's only 17, and there's a lot of I think there's a lot of improvement to his game. I did watch him during the one of the final home games of the season. I think early October. He looked kind of impressive. I really loved his speed. I loved the fact that he was direct in front of goal. I think his dribbling definitely needs slight improvement before he makes it to the first team or even has a look for
The
preseason.
Cowell genes.
Um, yeah, it's the Kalaji and speed and less so dribbling. But I think there is room for improvement, and I think he has the ability to improve that, just like we see in Cade now at Chivas Guadalajara, making his ever so impressive season. I don't know how he got that dog in him. After seeing his performances in the Quakes, he's definitely putting on a show. And I know you're a Chivas fan, right, Ivan? So you could see a whole lot of him daily.
I could if Liga MX's broadcasting rights weren't a mess, because almost every team has their own broadcasting contracts. So some teams will appear on Univision, some will appear on Telemundo, some will appear on Peacock. Kate Cal, of course, he had a bit of a tough time so far with Chivas in terms of getting his minutes, but the good news is he's getting minutes semi consistently. That's it. That's the good news there. His last four games, he got 27 minutes for a game against Necaxa in Tuesday, September 23rd. 45 minutes against Puebla, September 27th. 9 minutes against Pumas on October 5th. In his last appearance, Wednesday, October 22nd. In the loss against Querétaro, he came on for about 27 minutes. Chivas themselves are having slightly more success. They've been winning a few more games than they have in some of these other seasons where they've kind of been sleepwalking a little bit. They've never really been a threat since I unfortunately have to say since they've won the CONCACAF Champions Cup against Toronto, and that's going to be like 5 years ago next season, I think. So, yeah, it's been a while.
Was that with Almeida?
I think that was.
Oh my
So
god.
it's it's hard for me to stay connected with Liga MX with the combination of factors. Like it's a tough team to watch. It's a tough league to watch the games consistently, and also Chivas, along with many teams aside from the elite teams, with the expanded playoff format and with no relegation, they've kind of been in a bit of a malaise where that's a bit antithetical to the soccer culture for a lot of leagues in the world. You don't really have that problem with Major League Soccer because we expect that there's no relegation and that there's other pressures that keeps teams and coaches and players motivated. But yeah, just something to keep an eye on. I mean, happy that if KCal were to go to another team, it was another team I support. But that does not give me a whole lot of confidence that if he's struggling to find game time in Chivas, what would his next move be potentially in Europe? You know, we'll see. Like Benjamin Kramashi, he made the move to Parma, and he's starting to pick up his minutes a little bit more. It really does depend, and sometimes the moves to Europe come from unlikely sources, including a couple of town graduates, the likes of Ethan Kohler and Drew Murray. They're in the Werder Bremen and Freiburg systems, respectively. And that brings to a point that I talked to briefly with Abram before this podcast. For players like Cano, I will use him as an example as the 4-year veteran of the Quakes 2 / the town. If he doesn't get his chances and he turns 22, 23, etc., like our oldest player right now is 25. Does he look at his agent and be like, hey, let's see if there's an opportunity for me in Oakland Roots or Sacramento Republic or anywhere really in the USL Championship? My concern was that besides those two exceptions of Kohler and Murray, that there would be some internal politics where Quakes and Roots try to have some sort of non-aggression pact now with the players because there isn't a whole lot of crossover anyway between USL and MLS in general, as you would think. And but especially not from teams that share markets like Orange County and LA Galaxy or LAFC or Miami FC and Inter Miami. But I would not be opposed, if they get tired of playing in just the town, as great as that is, if you want to step up or change something in your career at least, that you get to watch them, at the Coliseum or wherever they play at after. That would be interesting too.
Yeah, I think fans are already engaged with Oakland Roots as well.
Hmm.
Knowing both of us, I want to know, are you part owner of the Oakland Roots as well? Did you invest in that little ownership segment, Ivan?
I have $3, aka I'm cheap and I didn't, but I do go
Oh,
with the
okay.
games.
Okay. So I mean, going back to the point, Bay Area fans have financially invested in Oakland Roots, and I think it would be strategic for the Earthquakes to make some sort of pact, as you mentioned, with them and let players kind of get minutes over there too. Because knowing their performances, that they haven't made playoffs in a couple of years now, and they just released Benny Feilhaber, which I thought he looked like a pretty good coach. He was a well-rounded guy. I feel bad that he's looking for a new job now. But that said, I think our youth can benefit from USL minutes, and if
Loan moves.
yeah, especially loan moves like players like Nico Tsakiris. If he's not getting minutes here, I know damn sure that Oakland Roots will need him there. And he can thrive in this second tier system. If he's not getting minutes here, I hope he gets sold in the offseason. But um, players like that, and like even God, and I'm
Or San
blanking on
Diego
his.
FC, even they've made use of three X slash temporarily X Quakes players. Verhoeven on loan, and Godot is still a former Quakes player, and then
Yep.
Pellegrino. So with their midfield, yeah, if they decide next season, Godoy, Father Time has finally caught up with you. Maybe we can ask the Quakes to loan us Securus. Like who knows? We don't have
Yeah.
that deep of a rivalry with San Diego compared to the LA duo, so maybe.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't even have a rival with San Diego, so hey, bring some guys over this way.
I
But
blame
yeah,
the Raiders and the Chargers. If they were still in their original cities, then maybe that would fuel some aggression between San Diego FC and the Quakes.
I definitely agree there. Yeah. But I think like players like Noel Buck would deserve, if he's recovering from an injury, he deserves minutes over it in Oakland Roots because at least it's competitive game time. Not saying the Town FC games aren't competitive, but I think it just more plays to Noel Buck's kind of competitive levels over there. Um, I I could really see something happening in the future, but on a business perspective, we don't really know what goes on behind the scenes. So um, I think it's cool on paper, but I think the reality and the business works of it, the marketing, I don't know.
Yep. And my closing thoughts on this MLS Next Pro season for the town. The season as a whole will conclude, I believe, on Friday because that's when the team that knocked us out, Colorado Rapids 2, they then did the business against Minnesota United 2-1. So they will be going to Sports Illustrated Stadium, Harrison, New Jersey, where the New York Red Bulls 2 will be hosting them for the MLS Next Pro Final. That concludes Saturday, November 8th. With that being said, I think it's been another successful season. Success being measured in they fielded a competitive team, they had another good playoff run. Maybe there is some people that are thinking, okay, it would be nice for them to get over that hump. Maybe the players themselves have been there for a while, maybe thinking that. But overall, it's been exciting to watch, and you grow a more strong connection with these players, and they show up in San Jose Earthquake's first team. I'm sure we were all excited for Bo LaRue, but especially those that watched LaRue with the town, they were even more thrilled because of it. Any other thoughts?
Um, I'm really looking forward to next season's town specific season because as much as a lot of the Earthquakes fans, the first team fans like watching the first team, I think it's really fun on a personal level to watch our academy products and to watch our youth kind of mold into the players that we know they're they're supposed to become and they're capable of, and that's the perfect place to watch is the Town FC. It is highly competitive. These players are physically active. They are like almost like pushing each other over in aggressiveness to get to retain possession for their team, and it comes to a lot of physicality, and that's what a lot of fans want to see in soccer games. It is a contact sport, and they definitely make sure of it. They make sure that there's contact in each game. So, if you want exciting football, if you want exciting soccer, exciting style of play, please watch the Town FC next season, because they really are worth watching. And especially if you're a San Jose Earthquake season ticket holder, tickets are free. Go contact your rep. Obviously not now, but next season, contact your rep for free tickets when they come out to PayPal Park. It's a real treat. And that being said, I really do hope that, kind of going back to what you said, like players like Mendoza, they get a real good first shot at the first team, because despite how many years they've played for the Town FC, I think that they've showed a good enough worth to at least be given minutes for the first team. And if they can't show out there, then sure, they can drop back to the Town FC or get loaned out like even Oscar Verhoeven is to San Diego FC, a team that's absolutely thriving right now. And I'm sure that success, being enshrouded in that success, is only going to boost him and his ego and his talent and skills, and that much higher when he returns back to the first team. So yeah, please go watch the Town FC. They're such a good group, such a friendly group of players too, when approached, not on the field. Um, yeah,
Well said there, and you've gotten both of our perspectives on it. And I highly recommend you talk to Abram and Crystal as well. They go to all the games, they cover them too, and they're just as passionate about the town as they are the earthquakes. And the off season is just getting started. We're speculating, we're hypothesizing all sorts of things regarding the Quakes roster. We're awaiting those roster decisions, as sad as it may be for those that we say goodbye to. But make sure you join us on the Sounds Tectonic Takes Discord server. You'll get to see a bunch of random Quakes material, even my EAFC career mode, where somehow Christian Espinoza gets an Argentina cap and Napoli triggers Arango's release clause. So yeah, that
2027 is happening in real life too, by the way.
oh my gosh. Imagine McTominay and Arango. That would be funny.
Clinical
But
combo up top.
yeah, and we'll still see about some potential playoff content. The one matchup that we know for sure as of now is LAC versus Vancouver Whitecaps. And with Whitecaps, we have Angelo Zara, who is a soccer writer. He's a diehard Whitecaps. With LAFC, we got Eric Holstrom, who does a lot of great content for Pitchside US on behalf of LAFC. So we may have a debate on our hands there. But we'll try to get that together, hopefully with less technical difficulties this time. But of course, we're thankful for all the guests we've had on this season, and we're thankful that you're still watching us. I know that's tough. It still stings a little bit that the Earthquakes missed the playoffs, but we are very passionate about this team, and we know you are as well. So thank you for being a part of this journey with us. Follow us on Blue Sky and Twitter, and go Quakes!
Go Quakes!